Welcome back to True Story with John Gibson. Today's guest is Anna Pirkl, one of the authors of Transforming Trauma with Jiu-Jitsu. Thank you so much for joining me, Anna.
Thank you for having me.
I keep doing the Anna thing. I'm going to stick to Anna, dude.
It's okay. It doesn't bother me either way.
I know you're so kind with that. And it's a total aside too. So my wife's name is Ariana, and she is very sensitive to like anytime she gets an Ariana and stuff. So I try so hard to be diligent about those things. So anyway, I promise now to do my best.
Not a problem.
So with that silly introduction, so you and I've talked a few times, but I wanted to kind of really take this opportunity to share a lot about you and your story and some of your accomplishments and insights. I feel like every time we talk, I learn so much from you. But let's just start maybe first and foremost with the book, if we can. And then I'd love to just talk a little bit more about your personal journey. But maybe we'll just start by discussing what was it like finding your co-author and then just approaching this venture and writing this book?
So lucky enough for me, my co-author kind of found me. Jamie, Dr. Marich, was actually sought out by North Atlantic Books to write this book. She had written others on lots of other topics, but they knew that this is something that needed to be written. Mm-hmm. And so they asked her to write the book. Her and I had connected separately from this book. And, you know, I just have so much respect for her and her work and all the goodness she's putting out in the world. And she wanted somebody who was still training on the mats, who was also a clinician, because she had gotten what she needed out of her jiu-jitsu journey, but, you know, wanted a co-author that was still training. And so she reached out to me, what a privilege, mm-hmm. and said, Anna, would you be interested in co-writing this? And I'm thinking, you know, I don't know. I've never done anything like this before, but yeah, let's do this. So it's been a huge growth learning curve for me and an amazing experience, but it's so much less about me. It's about all the other people I interviewed for this book and their stories. This isn't about me and Jamie. This is about jiu-jitsu and all the people that are out there healing from it.
Right, of course. Well, can we talk a little bit about like your clinical background and what you do for a living too, and how obviously that contributes to the book ultimately, but your approach, I mean, you know, everything around this, I guess your approach, I guess.
So I specialize in trauma and something I like to call complex trauma. Mm-hmm. And I tend to see a lot of teenagers and teenage females and prepping them for launching into this world in college. And, you know, as a result, I'm always looking for self-defense training out there because I don't want them coming back to me from college because now they've suffered a sexual assault that they potentially could have, you know, escaped if they had the right tools. Sure. And so I've been to all the eye gouging, groin striking, you know, beat up big guy who's in like a balloon costume kind of trainings. And P.S. there's room for those too. I'm not anti those. But I always kind of instinctively knew that there was an issue with them because the majority of assaults happen by people we know. Yeah. And the chances of me wanting to stick my finger in, you know, Tom from this fraternity who everybody knows and loves into his eyeball.
Right. When you've never been in a confrontation in your life to go to that extreme measure. Right.
And ew. No,
yeah. And let's just say gross.
Yes, exactly. Gross. And, you know, the chances of you landing that perfect strike, even if you are in the striking arts for many years is, you know, also illegit. And so I kind of knew that. I've had fights, unfortunately, as a teenager and during my childhood. And, you know, I know how those go down. You know, your bad guy doesn't stay still right in front of you for you to hit him.
Yes. Yeah, it's not a movie. I know.
It's not. So anyway, I had heard about this jiu-jitsu thing because I was working at a men's sober living, and the owner of that was a black belt at Crone, Gracie. And he was instructing the guys at the sober living in this. And, you know, I kept hearing stories from those clients and other clients that jiu-jitsu was saving their life and helping them through addiction and all those kinds of stuff. And I'm like, what's this jiu-jitsu thing? Anyway, so that was in the back of my head. And then a friend invited me to a self-defense training, and I didn't know what to expect. I didn't even look up what it was. I was just like, okay, yeah, I'll go to another.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that. You had no idea. Wow.
No, I had no idea what it was. I didn't know who Henner was.
Wow.
I didn't know anything about any of it. And so, yeah, I showed up and I was addicted day one. I went,
cool.
Wow, this is cool. This is based on leverage. This is something that my daughter, I even knew at that point, I'm like, my 9-year-old daughter could execute on this and actually stay safe. And I went, wow, this is incredible.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily have to be violent to protect myself from violence too. So it's just so refreshing to know that I didn't have to groin strike or eye gouge. And then it addressed all those really cool things. Like in my school, there's a lot of work on women's self-defense. And so we have like a creepy hug technique.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Well,
where,
I like that exists. Yeah.
Right. And so it was long before the like striking blows where they're already working on people's ability to like set a boundary. Like, no, thank you. You're not going to wrap your hand around my waist. I'm going to underhook your arm as you go for that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I was 10 hours a week. Shortly thereafter that, I'm on the mat.
Yeah, you were in. That's amazing. So let's back up a little too, just like as a human being or as a person. Like, you're obviously pretty adventurous. Like, did you do I think you have told me you have other combative training and stuff now, but did you previously to this, other than just those like crazy martial arts self-defense classes? But was it something you were always interested in, or were you interested in all sorts of different sports and stuff?
And I think this is one of the cool things about me and Jamie coming together and writing this book. I've always been an extreme sports fan, like, walk straight up to the biggest dude in the room. Let's do this, adrenaline junkie kind of person, which isn't necessarily healthy. Right. That's, I have the double
self-awareness.
I have the double herniated discs in my neck to prove that. Right. But extreme mountain biking, skiing, all that stuff, I'm in, and not necessarily even train well to do it. I will just jump in because I'm that kind of reckless, and I've had to work on that for years. And I work with my clients on also being careful with that. Jamie is the opposite end of the spectrum, where she's going to be really cautious, and she was not excited about this jiu-jitsu thing. And it took her a while to, say, I really, what is this? And I don't know that I want that personal contact. Versus me. Yeah. Again, there's the LAPD officer in the corner with the like vampire teeth mouth guard. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Right.
Right. Yeah.
So
those guys are out there.
Yeah. And I thrive off of that. I'm busy trying to learn how to do my hill starts on my motorcycle right now. And my daughter wanted to take kendo. So we're in that now. And I love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we really do represent both sides of the spectrum. And I think we try to play that out in the book, and people figuring out how to honor themselves and protect themselves as they go on this journey, which is another thing I always want to make sure to say. I'm going to give this disclaimer, right, that what we're sharing today is for your information purposes only, and that, don't take this as medical advice. And, I do that, of course, for the legal reasons, but more so in that I really need people to honor themselves and go see what's right for them.
Yes.
Right. Some schools that are more aggressive and are going to let you start fighting sooner, that might suit some people, but other people that might actually create trauma.
Oh, for sure. I understand that makes total sense to me. And, you had said something earlier before one of our previous conversations that I thought so much about too. And I understand that you detailed this quite a bit in the book as well, about how to pick an academy and those sort of tenets and ideas, principles around that, and both for yourself, for them. And I think that that's so great to take that time for anybody who's a novice or just interested, because that is important. You don't want to cause any trauma, but you want everyone to come back. We want them to fall in love with this. So it's important to find that right match. But there's another thing you touched on there, which I think is really interesting, because I'd never considered it before. But one of the things I fell in love with jiu-jitsu, like one of the things that made me really fall in love with it, was that it was like accidentally intimate. Like I didn't anticipate that. I didn't anticipate the bonding that would take place with like rolling with a black belt that's like a cat. They glide and they tap me out effortlessly, and I don't get hurt. and it's like one of these things where afterwards I'm like, that was a really crazy experience we just shared. And I was really bonded through that intimacy because I felt like they took care of me in the midst of a battle. It was just ironic. It was really strange. And I fell in love with it. But conversely, I never considered somebody who like walked in there, had no idea, like maybe like Jamie's experience. And then they're like, now get on the ground and wrap your legs around me. And I was like, oh, what a nightmare that would be for somebody, So like with that in mind, can we talk a little bit about maybe in your recommendations around how folks can like find the right kind of academy to honor themselves?
In the book, I have a 31-point checklist of things you should look for, and just even sort of the basic safety, right? Of, this is the basics as to what I would expect. And if you're a trauma survivor, I have a whole nother 60 points outline in the book of things that you might look for, ask for. I think there's a lot of really good intentioned instructors out there that aren't there yet, but want to be, would be open to hearing more about the fact that, instructor, can you take those practice weapons off the wall? They're too much for me right now. Right. And if they knew that that was preventing a student from getting started in our academy, they would be open to, we don't have to keep those on display. Right. So, I think there's a lot of, again, dojos, gyms out there where people want to know more, learn more, and who are open to that. And then there's ones where they're not. But there are a couple points that I always like to emphasize to everybody. And the first one is safety first. Some gyms, well, what I would want is that they are explicitly, when they are training a technique, that they are explicitly saying how you keep your training partner safe, and that they're emphasizing that. And so how they might experience that is, with basic moves like trap and roll that almost every gym is teaching, they will say for the bad guy that you need to tuck your shoulder as you're rolling, right? Because if you don't, and you're falling over sideways, there's a lot of impact on the neck and the body and all of that. And they really need to be emphasizing that with every technique. And some gyms do a better job than others at that. And that for me is just a basic. If they're not doing it, walk straight out the door. Another one that I think is critical is that they shouldn't be allowing you to spar on day one. Especially not free sparring, right? Just anything goes kind of thing. I mean, if they're doing a technical sparring, like we just taught you this technique, now try it out on each other, that's different. But there are gyms, there's a lot of gyms that are doing that. Day one, you can walk in and spar. It's
fresh meat. It's throwing meat to wolves. It's crazy.
That'd be like me saying, let's play chess, but I'm not going to show you how any of the characters move.
Right.
And now your body is the character, and, your limbs are at risk. I remember one day on the mats, and it really impacted me. This guy was going for my ankle, right? And I made it clear, I don't know any of the foot locks or any of that. Can you not do that? And he said to me, don't worry, I won't really go for it until you're a blue belt. And I'm like,
or just honor what I asked.
Yeah, how about that? And then I became afraid of getting my blue belt. I'm like, I don't think I want my blue belt.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? Because I have my blue belt. Now you're really going to go for my ankles. But, that kind of thing, a person walking through the door wouldn't even know that there were ankle locks.
Right. Of course.
Right?
They wouldn't know they're in danger. Right. Yeah.
Right. They have no business, sparring day one. And then the third thing, and I again, really, really important in my eyes, is that they are separating street from sport explicitly. I really like it when they're two even separate programs. Like, you need to get this belt to know that you're going to be safe on the street and the average attacker or whatever, based on what police are saying the attacks look like, versus sport, where now I'm learning things like spider guard or something else where I'm open to punches. Right. And, for the average person who is coming and think, I'm getting this self-defense training, and now they apply something in a fight in the street that leaves them open to punches. Right. Exactly. And nobody explained it. It just feels so basic to me, but there's a lot of schools that are not considering that and don't explain it. And even love my school. But even in master cycle, sometimes I'm like, is this safe on the street or not? And I want them to say it. I want them to say, this is more of a sport technique than this is a street technique. Yeah. All of that makes sense to me. And I agree. All of those should be just fundamental, very principle stuff. Yeah, I agree. Well, can you share a little, kind of switching gears a little, but I think you have such
a beautiful story, Anna. Like, I know why I fell in love with jiu-jitsu, but your story, as if, you know, how it kind of helped you sort of, I don't know, approach your own trauma, right? And handle that and stuff, I think is such an amazing, again, I said the word earlier, testimony. Do you mind sharing that and kind of detailing what that process was like for you?
Of course. So, you know, in addition to being a clinician, I am a seasoned client of therapy myself. I'm a complex trauma survivor. And I've done many years of work on myself, and I kind of walked into the jiu-jitsu mats thinking, yeah, I'm done. I'm cool. I've figured that all out. Right. Yeah, no. But anyway,
I understand.
oh, yeah, it's, you know, it really is layers of the onion for the rest of your life kind of situation, right? We're always going to be peeling that back and new information. We just need to stay in a growth mindset, period. But anyway, I get on the mats. I'm doing great. You know, really enjoying my journey, lots of good experiences. But then over time, I'm noticing that one instructor is really triggering me. And I didn't even notice it was trigger at first. I'm like, why am I so squirmy? Like every time he comes near me, I can't get away fast enough. I'm rushing the techniques, you know, and as you're in my school, when you start collecting stripes on your white belt, they start using you as the demo, right? Because they want to show other people, look, a white belt can do this. And so he'd start calling me up and I would spaz out. Just, you know, couldn't get away from him fast enough. I'm sloppy. So I'm hunting for where's this coming from? What's this all about? And finally, you know, one of those middle of the night, I realized, okay, he looks like somebody I remember. And I'm like, no, can't be. I look the guy up and I'm like, oh, wow. And I can feel all of it again. I'm icky, sticky, angry, helpless, frustrated, shame-filled, you know, because how victim survivors often blame themselves. What could I have done different? You know, all of it's coming back. But especially my body, I could feel it in my body. Anyway, I reach out to Eve, Henner's wife, and say, hey, you must encounter this all the time. How do you guys usually approach this? And she sends this beautiful response, you know, thank you so much for your message, you know, or it's a privilege that you would entrust us. And whatever you need, because it's very individual what people need. You might need more Henner, less Hennergy. They like to joke about that because he's kind of an energetic kind of guy.
Yeah.
But anyway,
ultimate optimist, right? Like, yeah.
Anyway, I was like, you know what? Let Henner be Henner. Let me figure this out. So then it comes to the point where I should be belt testing. And the instructors are like, when are you going to test? So I pre-test with one instructor. I almost get 100%. Like I'm nailing it. I'm so excited. But I'm like, I want to test with Henner. Would you do me that? Because he doesn't normally test everybody, right? And they're like, okay, yeah. Because I'm thinking, if I'm triggered and can execute on these techniques, then I know these techniques.
Yes.
Like this is legitimate test. This is like me, you know, somebody in the parking lot, right?
Yeah.
And I was expecting to be triggered, but I really was triggered. From the second he walked in the room, I was doing my stop block frame, back up, you know, and he's like,
wait, did we start?
He's like, Anna, do you want to get a sip of water? And I'm like, no, just get it over with. And he's like, oh dear. Anyway, before the end of the test, I mean, I literally had tried to hit him.
Wow.
I blacked out for a second and I messed up trap and roll. I messed up trying, and I'm hitting his hands and he's like, Anna. And he's doing his thing that he does. Anyway, I figured it out. I passed the test. I come out of the test. I am so red. I'm purple. One of the instructors is joking with me. Do you think you'll ever return to your normal color? And I'm like, I don't think so. But I pass. I get in my car and I don't know why. I just instinctively pulled up the guy's picture again. And I'm like, wow, you can't hurt me anymore. And then I looked at him again. I'm like, I forgive you. And it
gets me every time.
It was such a monumental moment for me because, you know, I've tried for years to help my clients with forgiveness. You know, how do you let go? You know, how do you move past? How do you leave the venom, leave the garbage?
Right.
And, you know, I've read all the cool books out there and I refer them to them, but it wasn't until that moment that I could let go. And I figured it out. My brain was going to stay vigilant and not let go until I felt like I was safe and I had answers.
Right.
Duh, that's our brain's job, is to keep us safe. And if I'm not safe, I'm going to need to keep returning to you and that memory to figure this out. And it's interesting. I feel like there's a lot of survivors in our research that have reported that the nightmares stop, right? Because the nightmares at night are bringing up the old memories. How do we fix this? How do we fix? That's the brain's job. And now all of a sudden, wait, no, I have an answer. And now it's not even a nightmare anymore. It's just a dream of how I like stopped that. I shut that down. And I don't know. Anyway, it was a profound experience for me. That was one of the moments I was like, oh, wow, this is huge.
It's so beautiful. Like, it gives me chills every time, because it's there's one, I've always had a hard time articulating like what it's done for me from a healing perspective. And the best I could ever come up with was it was empowering. And it was so not enough. Like, it was like, but it gave me that power I was seeking or missing or felt I didn't have. So empowering, that's the best I had. And to hear you explain it and how you ultimately found the forgiveness is such a beautiful thing, because it's such another level to it. And yeah, and I understand that. And I understand how that's what makes the demon go away. Like, I mean, you explain it beautifully and more articulately than I ever could, because you solved the problem, you know, and your brain was vigilant. It makes such sense to me. And I appreciate you sharing that so much.
You know, I mean, if you'll bear with another one of my stories for a moment too, for me, for me, it was so much, it's also above and beyond just the healing of that specific trauma. Because something else I discovered just only a month ago that I really didn't put into the book too, is somebody had asked me, what did jujitsu do for you? And I don't know why, I just went, it allowed me to play for the first time, play. And I was like, what is this about, Anna? Like, you play all the time, right? And then the more I thought about it, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. And of course, memories are popping up, right? I grew up in a difficult city, Bridgeport, Connecticut. And it's just, you know, there's a lot of violence. And I remember being on the playground at like 4 or 5 years old. And there was nobody to play with. These 4 kids show up. My dad specifically said, don't play with them. And I couldn't figure out why. I'm like, why shouldn't it's finally somebody's here. I'm going to play.
Yeah.
And I don't remember if I just forgot or disobeyed, but anyway, I started playing with the kids. And first 5-10 minutes were fine. And then all of a sudden, I'm the bad guy. They're the good guys. I'm being smashed in the ground. I got one of them standing on my back. They're kicking, they're hitting me and all this. And my stepdad's just standing there like this, looking at me. I told you, not helping.
No, that's crazy, but yes.
You know, he's a tough lesson kind of guy. He didn't mean to hurt me.
Ouch.
Yeah. Anyway, those were the kind of experiences I grew up with, you know, in my neighborhood too. I mean, as a teenager, now the goal was to razor blade everybody's face, you know, I mean, just right. And so it wasn't until, 44, 43 years old, I'm on the jujitsu mat and I'm playing. I'm playing. I'm physically playing. I'm rolling around. I'm safe. I can it was a physical connection and play that I had never experienced. And I think that, you know, regardless of like the difficult neighborhood even that I grew up in, I think a lot of women never get the chance to play like this. You know, the boys can grow up wrestling, and a lot of times girls are discouraged from this. And you guys have had that all along. You're like, yeah, let's do this. Let's, you know. And it just, you know, regardless, male, female, whatever, I got to play in a very physical way that was safe.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it's beautiful because the bonding through that, but I had to be repressed. Like you said, there was no outlet for that for you. Like, so how freeing, and it's a different type of exertion. It's different than running the track or lifting weights. It's different. Yeah.
It's different. And, you know, I've seen research that says that we are a touch deprived people. You know, and we know we need it. I mean, even those preemie babies that are born in the hospital, they have professional cuddlers that come in to hold them, and they thrive better. They survive better if they have people touching them. And I've seen things too that suggest that we're supposed to have 9 hugs a day from 9 different people.
Wow, crazy.
And we're just not getting it, you know. And touch has been criminalized, especially between you know, different genders. That as soon as you touch me, that's now sexual or right. And this, you know, we all joke at my academy that it's like an hour and a half long hug situation, right? in such a non-sexual way. It's just total play.
Right.
I mean, I picture like when you're at the zoo and you watch little baby tigers running around, like, you know, tackling each other
Yeah,
and rolling.
exactly. Yeah.
Kind of
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. There's nothing is pure. It's a very pure, awesome thing. Yeah, amazing connection. That's through jujitsu. I want to ask this too. Where do you recommend people best reach out to you with questions or inquiries if they wanted to reach out to you, even for therapy, perhaps? You know, what's the best avenue?
You know, Psychology Today, they can look up Anna Pirkl. At some point, I'll probably have to put another website together again. I'm part of One Heart Counseling Center, a therapeutic practice. They can see me there too. I am getting asked and starting to work on training dojos on how to become more trauma informed. I've been doing that for years for Gracie University. They've got videos of me, and I come in and I talk to the instructors about what a traumatized student might look like and how to respond to them in a respectful way. And then I have, of course, a lot more insights I can offer on trying to eliminate as many triggers in your training environment as possible. You know, things that, you know, we might not even think of, like, you know, a person's cologne can set off, right, somebody. So
yeah, right. Never thought of that. Yeah.
Right. All those different things that we can work to eliminate. And again, it's not about, you know, avoiding all the triggers. It's about minimizing them so we can get these people through the door so that they can then ratchet up the intensity based on how they can handle that. And do this in a healthy way, not in a overexposed kind of way. Because, you know, if we have a scale from 0 to 10, right, and we're training in the 8, 9, 10, we can actually be re-traumatizing ourselves and making whatever that is even worse. So we want to train in the 4, 5, 6, lift the weight, put it down, lift the weight, put it down. So.
Exactly. Yeah. And such a great analogy for people to understand what that means, like from a level perspective. That's awesome. Anna, I always learn so much from you. Thank you so much again for finding the time to have this discussion today. I'll make sure to include all the links, Psychology Today and everything, so everyone can get a hold of you if they do have questions. But again, just thank you so much for sharing a little bit about yourself and your work. Again, this is True Story, John Gibson and Anna Pirkl.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for your work. Okay.